Thanks for coming. We're really excited about this forum. Our forums, we've been doing them for about 2.5 years now, and we try to bring together really smart people with great panels and a great discussion. I want to start with thanking our sponsors, Jumpstart to begin with. Awesome space. This is the first time we've done anything at Jumpstart, and really, I love this space for this size of group. This is going to be great. Our panel sponsors, Brennan Mann and Diamond and Disco, Legal Sifter, Epic, TCDI, and Kreller. And then Open Law, Concord, McDonald Hopkins, and Clio. So thanks to all of those. And thanks for all of those that came from outside of the area, so outside of Cleveland. We know, and we knew when we put this on, that there are a lot of legal tech and innovation conferences in New York and Chicago and San Francisco. But we think that Cleveland has a really large legal community with great law firms, great in-house teams, and great government lawyers. And we thought that we could really put something on here. And there's a lot going on in the innovation space, in the legal innovation space in Cleveland. So for example, just a couple of examples. We've got Jeff Miller over here with BMD Gateway, and that's a software for compliance, a really cool thing that they've got going. You can talk to Jeff about that later. Jonathan Vinokur and Thompson Hine. Jonathan's in the back, and he's got Quick Launch that just came out recently. A really cool thing for startups. So I would check that out, and you can talk to Jonathan. And beyond that, there are a lot of in-house teams that are doing a lot of really innovative things. And so the idea was to bring a large group of vendors, law firms, and in-house teams together and talk about what's going on in innovation in the legal industry. Innovation has been an interest of mine in the legal industry from early on in my career. In the early days as an associate, there'd be plenty of projects that I'd be left shaking my head afterwards, that thinking there's got to be a better way to practice law. When I went in-house, it was eye-opening to learn that the job wasn't simply about doing good legal work. That was really an eye-opener to me. That was table stakes to be an in-house lawyer. And you're a cost center, you have to justify your existence. You had metrics to deliver on, budgets to demand, and budgets to meet. Legal is a cost to be managed just like any other function within a company. In the wake of the Great Recession, a lot of good lawyers were let go, and we entered the age of do more with less. That meant more work would be done in-house, but we had fewer people. There are only so many hours in the day, and we weren't hiring anyone. So what do? You're forced to look at legal service delivery as a series of processes, and how can you streamline them to make it easier to get things done? You also look to technology, and how can we leverage that? When I started the law department at SwageLock in 2012, I confronted do even more with less. I was a department of one for 2 years. I had to heavily lean on process, technology, and a couple of non-lawyers to help me meet the demands of the company. Later, we hired 2 great lawyers who are sitting here. Thanks, guys. But mostly relied on processing technology because we had way too much to do for 3 people in a law department. We have a great agenda today, great panelists, so let's get started. So first, I'm going to introduce Stacy Greenwell. Stacy, raise your hand. Stacy is corporate counsel for the Davey Tree Expert Company. Jessica McKinney. This is what a legal operations person looks like. I wanted to show you a real live one. Jessica's the first full-time legal operations professional in the law department at Eaton, and her role includes internal and external spend management, data analytics, and strategic planning. We've got Dave Kupar. Dave chairs the Intellectual Property Department and Innovation Committee at McDonald Hopkins. Dave works with clients in 2 key areas, creating and refining IP strategies and litigating IP assets and issues on behalf of clients. And last but not least, we have Jeff Miller. Jeff's the managing partner of Brennan, Mann and Diamond's Cleveland office. His practice is focused on labor and employment and corporate law, and he's the co-developer of BMD Gateway. We have now our esteemed moderator for this panel. This is the approaches to legal innovation, Bill Garcia. Bill is the Chief Practice Innovation Officer at Thompson Hine. He likes to get the sand out of the gears between in-house and outside lawyers. He's he's practiced at major firms and had senior in-house roles, consulted to law firms and law departments, and served in leadership roles at law firms. And Bill's been a huge supporter of ours, so thank you, Bill, for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's help the panel here. You've got a master faculty of people who understand designing and approaches to innovation, but let's help them gauge their responses. So, level set. Show of hands, in-house or with a company? Okay, outside firms, government, and then vendors or consultants. Okay. Universities. There we go. Okay. All right. Thanks. Self-rate on expertise in the space. Do you consider yourself expert, proficient, or a novice in the area of legal innovation and developing innovation? Experts? Okay, come on up. Bring your chair. Proficient? And novices. Okay, great. The truthful ones. Thanks. Okay, so common themes among some of these enterprises, but they've all approached things a little bit differently. We're going to try to explore the commonalities and some of the differences. We're going to focus on 3 areas: establishing priorities, the structure of innovation at their enterprise, and driving acceptance. So let's start by defining innovation. Dave, how does your law firm define innovation?
Thanks, Bill. So I wrote out a couple simple things and gave this a lot of thought here for this room and for the webcast here. So in terms of legal innovation, the first big thing that we think about is that legal innovation is not simply technology. Technology is a tool, it's not an innovation. So that's very important for us. We always, quite frankly, we look at build-outs for technology. We see the limitations more than just the upside promise. So not a bad thing, but it's important to keep that in mind. Technology doesn't solve your problems. It's a tool to help solve problems. Big difference. Secondly, legal innovation for us at our firm at McDowell Hopkins is based on a real simple mantra, which is how do we make our clients' lives easier? So it's all about you, the clients in this room and everywhere else. So it could be something complex like the legal solutions, litigation-based, transactional-based types of solutions. It could be billing. If you think about the simple problems all of us have had as clients when we think about our own lawyers, those are the things we're constantly looking to solve or find innovations for. So a good example is, for those of you, again, who are clients in this room, it's when you send out the email, for example, saying, what's the status on project X, right? We've all sent that email out to a lawyer. And so we, for example, at our firm, we're looking at that as a solution. How do we identify for you status on projects on the interim before you even have to ask? So can you go to an app? Can you go to a portal where you can find those types of answers? Fees. Project-based billing, those kinds of issues. We're constantly looking at that, looking for innovations, better workflows, better ways to do things for clients. So that's what we think about when we think about legal innovation. And like I said, the other part of it is simplify, simplify, simplify. What we want are the innovations that make, again, our clients' lives easier, easy for them to understand what the issues are, how much it'll cost, how close are we to completion on projects, those kinds of things. So how do we improve internal processes to get there? How do we improve external processes?
So process plus technology. Jess, what about at Eaton? How are things at Eaton with process plus technology?
At Eaton, we focus on thinking outside of the box. We want to get out of that normal process, get a different perspective, change your mindset, because there's a lot out there that you can do when you look at your process a different way. You get set in your ways of how you do things, but if you just take a step back and say, maybe this isn't a value add step, or maybe I should talk to, for example, someone who has I'm not an attorney, so I have more of an accounting brain. So maybe I can see a different piece of that process that could be improved by something I've learned along the way to really innovate in how you do things to continuously improve and drive better results.
Okay, so one of the things that we know is there's not unlimited time, there's not unlimited resources. You can't do everything at once. That means an enterprise has to make some choices about what they're going to do first, and the enterprise needs to have a process for doing that. Responding to the squeakiest wheel doesn't always get you the best result. Stacy, you're at a place where everybody's new, and you're talking about developing new processes. How are you going about establishing your innovation priorities at Davy Tree?
Well, you stole my answer because I was going to say whoever screams the loudest is generally how we go about it. But as Bill mentioned, so we're literally working from the ground up at Davy. So even though we're a $1 billion corporation, the the legal department is still in its infancy. So I would say how we're establishing our priorities in terms of innovation is trying to figure out, trying to balance what are we seeing the most of, trying to categorize things, and what are we spending the most time on versus what, really our focus is at the end of the day, our clients, is the business, and what are their priorities, and really their priorities are what drive our priorities. So for example, making sure that contracts and those sorts of things are reviewed, and they're reviewed in a timely manner is incredibly important to our business. And so that has risen to one of our top priorities in terms of innovation of how to get through the hundreds of contracts that Davy Tree signs on a daily basis across the country.
So Jeff, how about at your firm? You guys have got some groundbreaking innovation. How did you establish your priorities?
Yeah, so we have a tagline at the firm. I guess I'm supposed to call it an ethos, but it's a tagline of listen, solve, empower, and that's really what we adopt into our innovation evaluation is, we start with listening. What is the market saying? What are the clients saying? Echoing, what Dave's point was. What are the clients asking us to do? What are the innovators bringing to the table? And then the second part of solving, is this innovation actually solving something? Is it something that we can implement to solve an issue? And then getting into the empowers, what is the actual legitimate time frame? The feasibility for implementing it. So the one that we launched was our first launch was BMD Gateway, which started. I'm an employment lawyer, and I'd always have clients that would ask the question of, why do we bother training? Why do we train? And I got that question or variations of that enough that we started to look at, all right, well, why are we training? And so what Gateway does is it's a no frills back end company protection for training. Document compliance and acknowledgments, and it's supplanting that blurred line of HR and legal that we listened to what our clients were asking us. We were coming up with a realistic solution that we could implement, and then we had the feasibility study so that clients would actually be able to implement it and empower them to get to that resolution. So that's our big priority right now that is going on.
Okay, great. So we've heard two answers. One is, Stacy, it's the sheer numbers, right? We're going to respond to what the sheer numbers are. And Jeff, it's the clients and how do clients access this information. Let me suggest to you there's a third way to think about this, and that is a risk-based analysis and using your innovation to respond to whatever your highest risk is. So three different touch points to think about when you're developing innovation. Jess, at Eaton, what did you guys decide to roll out first?
We started with the contract lifecycle management. And the reason we did that, we started this back in 2016. We wanted to focus to proactively manage our contracts, the entire lifecycle, from the initiation through the proposal, the award, the compliance, and then the renewal. We really wanted to have a good transparency of what was already out there, to have a searchable database to make sure that we knew everything that was in the system. And another focus was standardizing the contract, making sure that the same terminology, the same terms, all of that information was in every contract we sent out, that we didn't have 10 versions of the same thing, saying virtually the exact same thing with 2 extra pages. And one of the biggest successes when I talked to the CLM team was they have been able to reduce turnaround time on an NDA by 75% since implementation. So having all of the system in place, and as they proceed to learn more and put more workflows, they've really been able to make a difference and get things on track where they should be, so we know exactly what's going on.
And so we found the legal ops person because she's the first one to cite a statistic, right? 75% reduction, okay? That's her life. Dave, You talked about technology as being, you talked about innovation as being more than technology, also process. Where did you guys start, and why
Yeah,
did you
so-
start there?
So it starts at the top. I think our leadership team at our firm, innovation is one of our 4 pillars as a law firm. So that's number one. So it's always a strategic goal. We start with that. We look at that. Every decision we make, is it innovative? Is it part of our overall strategy? With that, what we wanted to do at the firm, and again, having an IP background helped with this, frankly, was to develop a process in our firm that identifies innovations, gives a forum for people, whether it's an employee all the way up to the president of our firm and everyone in between, a place where they can actually provide ideas or insights on ways we can improve internal function or external function with respect to our clients. So by creating the innovation committee, what we did there was, and the committee itself was basically a process. It's actually a client-driven process. So again, we work with clients on a regular basis to cull ideas, create a process for ideation, and then make determinations like, hey, do we keep this as a trade secret? Do we file patent applications? How do we protect this technology? We use that type of, those types of processes to do the same thing in our firm. And the idea is to have an open environment where people provide their ideas, are open about it. We have in our firm's intranet a place where you can follow in a couple of minutes, put those ideas in, and then we have a committee of 13 people at our firm, real forward thinkers who meet on a monthly basis. We go through those ideas from an evaluation standpoint. And those that really can take off and have got some legs, then what we do is go back to the firm and identify working groups. So there could be different partners, associates, employees that we try to put together depending on what we're trying to solve there, to create some sort of solutions based on some of the ideas that are brought forth. So that's what we're doing as a law firm in terms of creating, again, a better culture internally as well as creating a better client experience.
So, great segue to our next chunk, which is structure. Law firms and law departments think about innovation and how they're going to organize innovation in a variety of ways. It can be a completely ad hoc process. You thought of it, you own it. That always encourages more thinking, right? You thought of it, you own it. The next one is sort of tiger teams, bringing in groups to solve a specific problem, then going away, and then a more formalized innovation structure. Enterprises find what works for them. It sounds like Dave's firm has got a pretty formalized structure with 13 people. You said.
Yeah. And the point is, everybody's got good ideas. All of us have come up with good ideas in this room, for example, but unless you execute on it, it doesn't mean anything, and that's the key. We wanted to just create a process where we create execution.
So, Stacy, what does the innovation structure look like at Davey Tree, or what do you envision the future state of the innovation structure to look like at Davey Tree?
Well, those are 2 very different questions, Bill. So the current structure is, I would say, there isn't one. But, in terms of identifying problems that need some sort of innovation, I would say that that's where Erica and I come in. That's we identify where there's an issue, and from there we pull together, because at the end of the day, again, our clients are the business folks. We pull in the business folks, and we're looking to them to tell us what's a solution that would work for them. And to describe to us is, again, we could come up with a solution, and if it doesn't work for the business, then we've just wasted our time. So at the end of the day, we're looking for them to work with us to help us come up with the idea and collaborate together. I would envision that pretty much is how it would work going forward, perhaps, though, a little bit more of a structured process. Not really sure what that looks like yet.
Okay.
Maybe you can tell me.
Yeah, Jess will be happy to consult. So,
Right.
Jeff, your firm's a little bit bigger than the Davey Tree Law Department. How much more formalized are you than the process she's described?
Very little. We don't have a strict formal process. It is a lot more on the ad hoc of figuring out who has the ideas, who's going to put the ideas together and bring them to fruition. We try to avoid pushing the boulder up the hill of making people participate or having the forced participation. If it's an idea, you go through that first level of does it meet does it pass the smell test, and then if it does, then you can work your way through it.
And Jess, you've got the largest enterprise of those represented. How much more formalized is the process at Eaton?
We have several different processes. So similar to what Dave was talking about, we have pillars. that are different from our practice groups. So the individuals in each practice group, we have a best-in-class, lessons learned, cost out, client focus, and innovation and growth. So in those, you get to pick what teams you go on, and if you're passionate about the topic. So we have an inclusion and diversity team, and that group is made up of wonderful individuals who we just put on an inclusion summit last week. We had over 100 people at Eaton Center, and we were able to really bring people together. We had the MCCA there. We have a cybersecurity team, and they're working on closing the gaps that we have at Eaton. Disruptive technologies, those types of things. So that's one aspect of it, and then it's really our senior leaders meet on it once a year. We have a governance meeting. We have they focus on the key strategic initiatives for the year, and that decides where we're supposed to, where we're going to focus for the year and what direction we're going to go in.
Okay, so we've got a Davy tree where sort of the metric is: are the clients happy? Are they going to do the innovation? Eaton is a structure where the individuals in the law department are selecting an area of interest and expertise. Dave, you've described your process. What do you do to review the process, to look at the process, look for changes, modify your structure?
So what we did as part of that, and actually one of my colleagues is in the room too, we actually created an evaluation process. So what we try to do with the process itself, and the process is key, is to create an objective basis to analyze the issue. So what we look at is how big a help is it? If it's changing the carpet color, not much help, obviously. How much will it cost? Do we need a budget? How long will it take? Is the innovation that's being brought to our attention clearly defined? Do we need some more feedback and input? So it's things like that. So what we're trying to drive is clarity on what the objective would be. How much would it cost to implement? Is there a cost even? How quickly can we put something like this together and identify potential wins? So for a good example of a working group we have right now is a data analytics group. So we're constantly looking at ways we can look at our own data. It's kind of similar to what you do, Jess, in terms of operations internally. So what we're always looking at is, how can we do things more efficiently? How can we decrease the amount of time and energy we're doing things? Can we create forms? Just simplifying different things, that we do to, again, reduce the dependency time of getting projects done, reduce costs, those kinds of things.
So, Jeff, let's take BMD Gateway as an example for you. You've launched the product. How is your structure, how is your governance of innovation interacting with the product? Is there a periodic review? Are there designated people who are going out to the clients to find out the client reaction? How are you structuring that continuous improvement?
Right. So we created Gateway as a combination between the employment and healthcare. It's one of those your chocolates in my peanut butter type of a discovery that we had when we were working in our healthcare group. So the co-founder of it is another managing partner who's in our healthcare group. So we're able to be very hands-on. That I review it from the employment side. Any healthcare clients that come on, she reviews it from that. We've always done a lot of data mining through the firm just to see, theoretically, when we put it into practice, is the legal spend should be dropping for clients. So, as we review it, we have that historical data, and we could show that the legal spend has been dropping, and for those clients that either have not adopted it, or the attorneys with their client base who have not put it into their system, we could show their losses or the potential overspend by clients on it, I guess is the way to say it. But it's the results that speak for themselves as we look at it. It started off as an internal program. Clients only 2.0 is going B2B, and what we've been able to do is, my whole philosophy on it is shoot for the stars. So the first client that we brought on the new platform, what led to was the Amazon DSP program and bringing that in nationwide. So it's right now we're drinking from a fire hose, but we're able to show that by industry statistics, as the type of legal spend these companies should have, that it's been dropped, and we like to attribute it to the Gateway program.
Okay. Build versus buy, always an issue, right? I think that Dave and Jeff have talked a little bit about sort of the factors that their firms consider. Jess, build versus buy, how much outside help are you getting? How much inside help are you getting?
The less it costs, the better. So we try to solve the problems internally and then look to see what solutions can help us from there. You know, I'm exploring more some of the legal service vendors out there and see if we can plug them in somewhere, but it's definitely focusing on the value versus the cost. And can we, will we see a return on our investment and how big?
So you're looking at disaggregation of different functions, presumably e-discovery, other things.
Potentially. This is more
Potentially.
conceptual on my part. I'm doing a lot of research. I haven't taken the idea to anybody yet.
So be interested in the outside guy. I'll get to the outside guys in a second on this. So the soup of the day is outside managed services, right? The back office of the law department being contracted out. Are you thinking about that, Stacy? Are you thinking about that, Jess? What are the factors? What are you thinking about? Yeah. Hot mic, nobody wants the answer. Nobody wants this one.
I think it's similar to what I said. I'm doing a lot of time thinking about it to find the value. We have done some minor things with our intellectual property group where they've enlisted some outside sources to help manage the spend and the outside counsel rates. But for the most part, everything has been internal, and I haven't heard much from our team that they want to change that right now.
We're exploring for sure some outside sources just because of limited resources on the inside. But I would, our biggest challenge is cost. At the end of the day, if we can do it internally, we're going to do it internally. Now, there are some things, but again, because we run very lean in most of our administrative departments, that we simply can't do in-house, and so we are exploring outside services. And again, our biggest thing is going to be cost and being able to show to those that we answer to, the CFO, the CEO, that we're going to get a return on our investment. That number, when we're talking about outsourcing things, is always large, whether it be a matter management system or, the training that we were talking about, that number that has a lot of sticker shock to CEOs and CFOs. And they're going to ask us, show me the numbers, show me how I'm going to get a return on investment. And that's what we need from our outside vendors.
Dave, Jeff, are you guys seeing your client base turning to managed services companies like United Lex or some of the others?
So far, I would say, and the only thing I'd add is the one sort of an innovation we've come up with internally to deal with this issue is for third-party vendors, a lot of whom are in this room, whether it's e-discovery, patent-based services in my world, things like that, where we use third-party vendors to do things. One of the sort of upsides, and I would suggest this to all of you who are in the alternative legal services space, is to figure out ways to sell your product not just to a law firm or to the client, to both. So any way you can get not just our firm, but our client together in on a decision-making process, provide licenses, do those kinds of things, that provides value ultimately to what we're trying to accomplish for our clients. So instead of dividing and conquering and having our clients sign up for seat licenses as well as for us, for example, on certain software, if you can have that combined, lower cost, we're going to be a darn good customer for you, and we will be a repeat customer for you as well. So look for those opportunities where you can help us as a law firm, quite frankly, sell your services through our clients, and our clients make out in a good way too. I mean, we had a situation where we have a pretty large seat license on our team for a key piece of software. We found out for one of our clients, one seat license, and it was 6x versus what we typically pay. So one thing on renewal period, we're going to go back and figure out ways to not only help with that specific client, but a few others, bundle our services together and see if we can get a better deal for everyone. And then obviously the software provider makes out too.
Jeff, what about your client base?
Yeah, I think that if you lead with ROI and then you follow up with the seamless integration, then you're ahead of the game. And at that point, you have the attention, and then they're willing to go that route. And there's too many service providers that complicate the issue, and you're going to lose the opportunity. But leading with those two and showing that in the first 5 minutes should open the door.
Okay, let's turn now to driving acceptance, and let's try to answer the modern version of the age-old conundrum. If a law firm develops an innovation in the forest and no one really uses it, Did it make a difference? Jess, how have you driven acceptance of innovation at Eaton with your supplier law firms? Let's pick on them for a while.
Supplier law firms. Well, we've done a lot of. Well, it was a cultural change first. I'll start there with our GC Heath Monosmith has really built in this challenge to be innovative and to have that innovative culture, and we've tried to work with our outside counsel to build that relationship so they understand exactly where we're coming from, and then we can work together. So there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of rate sheets, billing guidelines. I mean, that's really, we have, actually our pattern litigation team is doing a great job of having structured feedback conferences. He's already done 10 this year, and he has a report card, which is just a really cool way, and it's not confrontational, but it tells you how you're performing on these certain metrics, and then he goes into specific points on items he wants to work on with you. And it's just really collaborative, and I think that's where we're trying to get to, is we want to collaborate, and we want everybody to be happy on both sides, us and our outside counsel, and so we're just trying to build a culture.
Okay, Stacy, you've recently come from an outstandingly innovative law firm and moved in-house. What are you thinking about in terms of carrots and sticks for your law firms?
Right now, I compare our law firms to my children. In that, I'm just wondering how many times I have to scream to get them to listen to me. So, again, I think I have the same answer as Jess. I think it's going to be a culture shift. We are, pushing our law firms for things that they've never been asked for by Davey in the past, such as budgets, status updates, things of that nature. And it's been a constant push. And I think at the end of the day, it's just going to keep saying it over and over and over again that this is what our expectations are. And I'm not sure at the end of the day what it's going to take to have them listen, but we'll see. Again, maybe I should talk to Jess later.
Okay. Jeff, you're a managing partner. You lead an enterprise of individuals, type A's who are notoriously adverse to change. How do you get your firm to come along with you on your innovation vision? What are your carrots? What are your sticks?
Yeah, that's as I said earlier, I don't push a boulder up a hill. The numbers speak for themselves. We're a mid-70s law firm, mid-70s attorney law firm, not the years. And so we still have that familial environment in the firm where we have the accountability to one another on it. So, the innovation initiatives that we have in the firm, all of our initiatives, as I said, we have a vetting process before we even begin to implement them. So we're expecting that they're going to work, and we've had a pretty good success rate on them. So if for some reason there's somebody that's not embracing them, that individual is an island unto himself or herself. So I'd rather not try to bring that person along. I mean, their numbers at year end are going to show it as compared to those other individuals that do embrace it. And hopefully, and really we haven't had an issue of people that just haven't adopted in one way or another. So, but to the extent that they would, I would expect that their numbers would show it.
So Dave, Jeff lets the market operate. Right? Is the market operating at your firm, or are there processes in place to drive adherence to the innovation initiatives?
Yeah. So the approach we take is this. It's a combination of leadership and sort of psychological. When you're dealing with a group of lawyers, you've got to think about that. We as lawyers are natural questioners, so we're not just going to fall in line with a decision being made that might appear at first glance arbitrary. So, our key as a law firm and our key as leadership in a law firm, in our law firm, is to make sure people understand the why. So what's our status quo right now? If we change, what will that look like? What does that vision look like? Why is that a better scenario than our current status quo? And then the steps we need, help from our team to get there. So we've got to be clear on that, what the objective is, why is that a better solution than the current one we're providing, and then what steps do we need to take to implement. So when we provide that kind of clarity, our team's much more open to change. And then depending on the project, we do have our various carrots and sticks within our partnership to ensure compliance or making sure that change is implemented. But we don't take some heavy-handed, command and control approach to get there. It doesn't work.
So I think what you're hearing from all of the panelists is what's weaving through what they're doing is some pretty serious change management techniques. And if you're looking at driving innovation in your enterprise, as you plan your innovation, I think you need to spend a lot of time thinking about change management, thinking about the conversations that you're going to have to answer the WIFM, right? What's in it for me? And then the metrics that you're going to use to show success and the metrics that you're going to use. I mean, at Jeff's firm, it's pretty easy, right? What do the dollars look like at the end of the year? Jess has got a lawyer who's got a report card. Those are really common techniques, but that's part of the process. And as you start the innovation journey, one of the things you've got to think about is how are we going to sustain and how are we going to show success, defining success early on. Those are all sort of basic change management techniques, and it's something that needs to be an essential part of your planning. So this has been a great panel, great insights. We're almost out of time, but we're going to take questions. We're almost out of time for the panel part of this, but we'd love to take some questions. Let's close out with this. The top challenge that you see and what quick advice you'd have for the audience in overcoming it when they're thinking about innovation at their enterprise. Jeff.
I would say the top challenge is kind of an unintended consequence of the collaboration that we all talk about as the process, because you want to, as Dave said, everybody in the room has a good idea, or everybody in the room has an idea, and everybody wants to bring their idea and think it's great, but they're not all great ideas, and at some point, we've got to tell people no. It's when you have the feed the mayo to the tuna ideas, you can just tell them no, that's a stupid idea. But there's some innovative ideas that are out there that we've got to break their hearts and tell them that their baby is ugly and that we're not going to go forward with it, which causes some ill will, loses some of that familial atmosphere. So how we solve it is we do make it a lot of data driven as to how will it actually work, can it work, what is our return, the ROI on this, and try to take it from a business sense.
Dave, your top challenges and the advice?
I'd use the same answer, collaboration, from a different angle, though. I think, and I said this in a prior Nimble consulting conference, all of us in this room and what we do, regardless of whether we're in-house, outside counsel, a vendor from the outside that's providing services to law firms, corporations, businesses, nonprofits, you name it, we have to look for ways to work together going forward, because we've got good ideas, and when we work together to do it as opposed to look at each other as competitors. So much of what you're seeing in the news now in the legal industry is this alternative legal service provider versus law firm versus in-house counsel, and I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it as competition. It's the other way around. It's a very collaborative process. When we come up with good ideas together, we form good partnerships. We form good attorney-client relationships. That's what it's about. You don't want some sort of leverage point where the client has all the power or the attorney has all the power. This is all about partnerships, about doing things better together. And we come up with better solutions, better services for our clients, and we do a lot of good for a lot of people that way.
Stacy, what do you see as a top challenge, and what's your advice?
At the end of the day, the advice is the same, but for me, the biggest challenge is the adversity to change on both sides, both from our business folks, a change in the way they do things, they're adverse to it, law firms, a change in, and our vendors, a change in the way they do things. And again, I think the answer is making them part of the solution rather than dictating how things are to be done.
Jess?
So I was focused more on the technology aspect of this. So our biggest challenge now is knowing what technologies to implement. There are so many great solutions in the market, and oftentimes people are like, this is great, let's purchase it. Well, what value is it going to add? Where can we use it? Are we going to see that return on investment? So I'd like to flip the tables and say, let's do some type of business process review. whether it's formal or if it's something that's just really glaring out there that's an issue, and say, will technology help us here? If it does, is it a big enough return that we should shift what we're doing? So my advice would just be to focus on where the issues are and then identify the solution.
Okay, well, like every good project manager, we have over-delivered and we've come in under budget on our time. So we will declare this panel a success. Thank you very much to these panelists. They worked very hard. Tremendous job. Thank you, guys.